Hi, I'm Steve and welcome to my kitchen. Today I want to demonstrate how you can make honey oatmeal bread. Like this, fresh from the oven bread with the wholesomeness of oats and the sweetness of honey. What's not to like? This loaf is as delicious to eat as it is pleasing to the eye. I'll be using 3 cups bread flour, 1½ teaspoon salt, 1/4 teaspoon instant yeast, 1 cup old-fashioned Quaker oats, 3 tablespoons honey, and 14 ounces cool tap water. I set up my workspace with my utensils and my ingredients. I'm going to start with the dry ingredients. 3 cups bread flour. I use a scoop and shake method for measuring flour. This recipe is very forgiving and you don't have to be exact. One and a half teaspoons salt. I use a heaping teaspoon to get my teaspoon and a half. One-quarter teaspoon instant yeast, sometimes referred to as bread machine yeast. Before we add the flavor ingredients, I want to mix the dry ingredients to ensure the salt and yeast are evenly distributed throughout the flour. Next, 1 cup old-fashioned Quaker oats. And I'm going to give the dry ingredients another stir just to make sure they're evenly distributed. Now the wet ingredients, 3 tablespoons honey. And 14 ounces cool tap water. Next, we'll combine the wet and dry ingredients. This is one of the easier no-knead breads to mix. It's easier to mix because I increase the wet ingredients to compensate for the dryness of the oats. After it's mixed, the oats will absorb the added water. I'm going to scrape the sides of the bowl and form the dough into a ball. And we're done. Now that was easy. No mixer, no kneading, no yeast proofing. The hardest thing I had to do was get the honey out of the bear. The only thing we need to do now is cover the bowl with plastic wrap, leave it on the counter to proof, and Mother Nature will do the kneading for us. I'll see you in 8 hours. No-knead dough should be proofed for 8 to 24 hours, which gives you a lot of flexibility. You can make the dough in the morning and bake it for your evening meal, or you can make the dough in the evening, bake the next morning, and have oven-fresh bread for your lunch. The dough is proof for 8 hours and more than doubled in size. It's time to fold, shape, and proof the dough a second time. Bakers have known for years that bread benefits from long proofing times. The no-knead method takes advantage of this principle. It uses a minimum amount of yeast and long proofing times to develop flavor. Meanwhile, the long proofing times replaces the arduous task of kneading. Mother Nature does the kneading for you. I set up my workspace with the dough off to the left, flour and utensils off to the right, and off to the far right, I have an 8-inch skillet and no-stick spray. I'm going to use a skillet to shape the dough during proofing, so I'll start by spraying the skillet with no-stick spray. Next, I'll lightly dust the workspace with flour and scrape the dough out of the bowl. Its stringy nature tells us Mother Nature has done her job. With floured hands, I'm going to lightly pat the dough to flatten. Then, using a plastic bowl scraper, I'll fold the dough over onto itself, forming a ball. That's all you need to do. I like garnishing both the top and the sides of this loaf, so I'm going to sprinkle some oats on the work surface and roll the dough in the oats to lightly coat. Because of the flour, a lot of the oats aren't sticking. Solution: spray the dough with water. It'll make the dough stickier, and then roll the dough in the oats. And we have the desired results. I placed the dough in the skillet and covered it with a flour sack towel to proof. Before I leave the kitchen, I'll prep the oven. I've positioned the rack in the lower part of the oven and inserted the baking vessel. I do it in advance so I don't forget. I'm going to proof the dough for 1.5 hours, and I want to preheat the oven for half an hour, so I'm setting the timer for 1 hour. Dough should be proofed for 1 to 2 hours, and the oven should be preheated. It's been 1 hour, and I'm setting the oven to 450 degrees, and I'll reset the timer for an additional 30 minutes. The dough's been proofing for 1.5 hours, and the oven is set temperature. Let's bake the bread. Okay, now watch how easy this is to transfer the dough to the casserole dish when you use a skillet as a proofing basket. I'll shake to center. Next, I'll score the dough. I use a scissors to score the dough. It's safe, it's easy, and it does an excellent job. And it's ready for the oven. Next, we'll set the timer for 30 minutes. I'll see you then. The bread should be baked for 30 minutes with the lid on the casserole dish. It's been 30 minutes. I've taken the top off and reset the timer for an additional 3 minutes. The experts recommend baking the bread with the top off for 15 to 30 minutes to get a rustic crust. Personally, my wife and I prefer a softer crust for our everyday bread. Our preference is to bake the bread for 3 minutes with the top off. You should experiment and develop your own preferences. It's been 3 minutes. The bread is ready. Let's take a look. Well, what do you think? The appearance is excellent and the taste is great. I can't overexpress the pleasure of having fresh from the oven artisan bread around the house, and it is almost as easy as making a bowl of Campbell's soup. I have a variety of videos demonstrating no-knead breads and smart and easy meals. You may want to take a look at my YouTube channel. It's free. Just click on the channel tab above the screen.